It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Lot going on. We often look out at our world, look at the newspaper, and
stare into the mirror.
Stare into the mirror is how we like to view it, and for us, it's a more accurate way of perceiving what's coming into our experience, and then we have an element in our experience of being able to choose how we want to relate to what's showing up. A lot of chaos going on right now. A lot of, in my experience, my mirror, my universe is reflecting back to me a heck of a lot of tension and uncertainty. And
how does it feel?
It's tricky. In moments, I'm really able to honor it and go, wow, okay, there's a lot of, tension showing up. And
how does that feel?
How does it feel? Scary.
Mm-hmm. I know that so much uncertainty and so much chaos, and I immediately want to create a wall around myself or around my feelings or around my discomfort and numb it out. And that what's most powerful for me is to allow myself to feel what's going on. And I'm finding that there are layers of feeling. Much of my feeling is not an authentic feeling.
It's a thought.
It's a thought.
Yeah.
It's a thought about a feeling.
That's right.
Thought about a feeling.
That's right.
And I've become really masterful at doing that for going on to close to 6 decades now of protecting myself from hurt and feelings that at a time in my life when I didn't have the resources to show up for myself that was appropriate.
Yeah.
But I've become so masterful at it that now I'm just beginning to slow it down enough. I see as I've just now that breath is because even when I think about it, I even stop breathing.
Yeah.
So to be fully here and to feel what's going on below just my thoughts about what's going on. Oh, this is really terrible, and this is going to happen, and that's scary. What is happening? Well, what's happening is I am feeling triggered. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling on guard. I'm feeling an adrenaline. I'm feeling the desire to get reactive or to hide. So I just try and slow it down. And those feelings are sometimes really uncomfortable. And most of the time they are not as awful as I thought that they would be.
Well, the thinking is where it gets catastrophic. It's I've often said that depression is not a feeling state. It's a thinking state. It's a thinking pattern. It's where, the feelings are distorted because they go on the ride of our whys. I'm feeling this way because, and so forth and so on, versus what you were just talking about is really... I
think it was Fritz Perls that
Perls.
Said, don't ask why.
Yeah.
And
that's the father of Gestalt, the process of inquiry, if you will.
That's true at a level.
Yeah.
At a certain level, because so often, as you're pointing out, we do the why as a way to create story so we can insulate our feelings with story.
Yeah.
And at some,
That's
the paradox
right.
is,
That's
the next octave of it is, if you cut past that story, then the whys begin to become, you feel the feelings, and then you ask, at some point, you ask, well, why is this showing up for me?
Mm-hmm. Well, you've cut deeper. The minute you go, why is this showing up for me? You have a different perspective.
Yes, it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's not a perspective of laying it on the outside world.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
it.
a perspective of creating stories to support what's going on.
Right.
It is the perspective of saying,
an honest inquiry.
I'm showing up for what I'm really experiencing, and I'm feeling it. I'm not going to hang on to it by making a story. I'm going to feel it and release it, and forgive myself if that needs to happen for whatever thoughts and feelings I have around my feelings.
Yeah.
And then, if these things begin to show up recurrently as a pattern, to ask myself, well, why are these same sorts of patterns, when I look out in the mirror of my world, do I see these things mirrored? Why do they keep coming back? And owning that it's a mirror, and beginning to look at, well, why? Maybe there are certain beliefs and certain expectations and certain feelings that have been denied, that I have not fully owned and experienced and released. And as we say often, nothing changes until I do. Nothing changes
At that point, Barnet, then your feelings become a valuable feedback system. But prior to that,
everything's a valuable feedback.
Well, you're
system.
right. That's true. But what
everything is a feedback system.
It is. It is absolutely. Even the part that is a rehashing of the same story, the same.
I
pattern.
like this word, psychodynamic.
It's a great word.
I like to say it. I like to
so
feel
psychodynamic.
But it is. It's like it's a movie.
It's a movie. Yeah.
And I'm projecting it. And I am the projector, and I am the film that runs through it. And I am getting all engaged in what's on the screen as though it was separate from me.
Right.
But it is emerging out of my psyche.
Yeah. And what I like, specifically in Fritz Perls' work,
I realize that makes no sense to some people.
They'll catch up. They'll be fine. Let's go this way, because what Fritz Perls offered in that specific technique he developed, I don't know if he's the only one who developed it, but the whole gestalt was the idea of giving an aspect of our experience of voice and following it and allowing it and
I wore out a lot of
it.
chairs over many years.
Yeah, me too. But the process of that, albeit technically not required to go through that process, so with that exact format, it's not required to go through that format. But the going into it and pulling on all these threads to see what it has to show to us is very constructive.
It's empowering. I
Very
have to,
empowering.
as an aside, I have to throw out a quick story.
Gestalt story.
Yeah. So like 25 years ago, I had a mentor and a teacher, and who began as a therapist of mine, and he took me through several years of Gestalt work, and he had in his office this big red leather chair, and I would jump into that chair and I would enact out all these different aspects and hear from them and give them voice. And at the time, I was still thinking this is a psychological technique, but be that as it may. Eventually, I said, well, I have had enough of this, so it's time for me to leave. But before I leave, I have to actually take that chair with me. I think I spent so much time in this chair. I've expressed so many voices of myself in this chair.
That is great.
That I feel that this chair is mine. And he gave me the chair.
That's fantastic.
So for many years, I had this huge, ugly, red leather, worn-out, cracked, the chair of all of my sub-personalities, sat in my office, and it went from being a friend to this haunting. Eventually, it was a ghost, and it had to go.
That's beautiful. Well, that's very appropriate as well, where we've talked about this, retracking all these pieces versus holding them all very gently. In other words, sometimes the information we get in a particular day based on the inquiry is valid for that day. I always say we hold on to our stories very loosely, allow them to shift and adjust and develop, because that's the process of really creating this space for an evolution versus tying things so tightly. The part of me that's scared, that part we started with, when the tension starts up and I start to see the chaos reflected back to me and my world as I've constructed it starts to come apart.
And when data comes at us at a rate that exceeds our ability to comfortably assimilate and integrate and respond to, then we get pitched into crisis.
That's right.
So the fine line of tension between uncertainty and chaos. Chaos is an ultra creative state. It is the most powerful, beautiful state. But when we default into feeling overwhelmed or inundated, then we go to stories, and it can go very disintegrated very quickly. And there are whole other ways of dealing with crisis, which is great grist for another show.
You know, what you said is powerful, that chaos is an ultra creative state, and
it's just filled with possibility and filled with potential. It is confusing, literally co-fusing. It is the fusion of a number of two, usually many more than two, many possible, probable, optimal, some less than desirable possibilities and futures, all of them being fused. And out of that chaos of energy, eventually a standing wave happens. It's like looking out at a pond or a lake or an ocean and seeing all the wavelets and all the rivulets and all the chaos of white caps. And eventually two of them come together at the same pitch and the same amplitude and the same frequency, and they roll towards each other, and instead of going through each other, creating more chaos, they meet and they stand. In those standing waves comes clarity. It may not be beautiful clarity, but clarity. And we have an opportunity as players in that. We are no longer passive observers. We never were, but we were not developmentally tuned in enough to be an active player. And now we have the opportunity to be active co-creators and to have influence on what is going to be the disposition of that standing wave. Will it be a standing wave that I'm feeding attention to all of the disintegrated and all of the painful and all of the stories of the past that I am bringing in and throwing into the future as expectation? Or will it be an ownership, an acknowledgement, a recognition, a release, a forgiveness of my past stories, and a sense of vision and hope and possibility and expectation that I am throwing out into the future, and allowing that those futures are going to resonate back to us as waves, and that will collide with a wave front of who I am in the present and precipitate into a reality in present time and space that is glorious and beautiful and beyond our expectations,